Hey there guys, it's Salis, and today I have the pleasure of announcing to the YouTuberverse, Crysis 3. I'm bad at this. The overall look of Crysis 3 is, as I have come to expect from a CryEngine game, absolutely beautiful. The idea that New York has fallen and been overrun by nature is very well designed, with grass growing through the streets and rivers where streets should be, kind of Tokyo Jungle-esque if you would. And can I just speak about water for a minute? It is wonderfully designed and reacts perfectly to things, such as when you enter water it forms little ripples, or when you shoot it you get a really nice plume of displaced water. So between these two designs the environments have become absolutely something to behold. Enemy designs are also fairly varied. From the human enemies to the aliens, and of course the aliens are more varied, there are little scrabbly stalker type things that look as you would expect a quick and agile creature to be, and then there are the big stompy guys with heavy armor and big badass guns. And speaking of the guns, they're very well designed as well. The human weapons look very impressive, and the basic rule of if it looks cooler, it's better does definitely apply, which is why the bow looks so cool. But the real place where weapons design shine is the alien tech. Occasionally we're able to pick one of these weapons up, and they are very varied. There's guns that look like tentacles, one which looks like they could destroy a planet, and some with some really cool attachments on the end. Animation quality is also a stellar job, with some very fast but very fluid sections, and good enemy reactions throughout. The only issue with the design I've found is some of the levels there are little animals such as squirrels and deer in, Tokyo Jungle-esque, as I said. But some of their models are a bit lower quality than the rest of the game. The squirrels in particular I thought looked quite derpy, and I spent about 5 minutes just staring at them watching them run around because they look so stupid. But they're not a key asset, so they'd probably go unnoticed if you weren't really looking for them. The sound used in this game is very good, with some absolutely stellar music which really gives a great impression of the tension in sections and the mood in others. Although not exactly that memorable in places, it still got me very psyched while playing. The sound effects are also well used. The bow sounds exactly like a bow. It's quiet enough to be stealthy but not silent. And the gun sounds also change depending on which attachments you use for your gun. For instance, if you pick up a very loud submachine gun, you can add a suppressor, and it does baffle the sound somewhat, and the suppressed version does sound very close to the real-world sound of a silenced weapon. The various vehicles also have some very good sounds. This includes the tank's main gun and the VTOL's engine sounds, as you do genuinely feel like you could be there. And now, let's talk voice acting. Prophet's voice actor delivers another strong performance, and you can really feel for the character, trying to prove he's still human despite the nanosuit's influence. And the suit's voice is back as well, and it's as good as ever, sounding not entirely robotic, but also not 100% organic either. Prophet, of course, has his band of tagalongs, such as Claire, who has some very well delivered lines, and you can definitely hear the distrust of nanosuits and her opinions of Prophet. I mean, for a long time she thinks he's nothing more than a machine and constantly refers to him as hardware. But when she has her inevitable realization that he is in fact a living being, you do feel how sorry she is for how she's treated him. But by far the best voice acting in the entire game comes from Psycho. He also gets the best one-liners and some truly epic moments throughout the game, and he has some really good character development, so he is definitely worth checking out. As for the gameplay, it's a first-person shooter standard point-and-click interface, but this game seems to have taken a more stealth-focused approach this time. The addition of the bow and a lot of the suit upgrades is designed to help with stealth. It does kind of hint towards using stealth, and on higher difficulties the cloak and crouch method does significantly help you to deal with the game. There are a good variety of weapons available, but I found I ended up with the same set throughout the entire game because they're just the ones I liked. But with the ability to attach anything to anything on the fly, it really does vary things up a bit. I often found myself switching arrows or adding a suppressor, and it never really broke the flow because the modification menu is really good. And on the subject of the guns, they do have some impressive recoil for a game. But as I've already mentioned, if you're having trouble with the recoil, you can always add a suppressor to lower the kick, or add a reflex sight or a scope to help with your aim. I have heard some people saying the enemy AI in this game is dumber than a bag of rocks with a spike in its head. But I played this on Veteran, and the only times the enemies did anything even vaguely stupid was when I was inside a building. They would throw a grenade to flush you out, because I was in cloak, obviously. But they would be in another room and throw the grenade against the wall, blowing themselves up. But that only happened twice in the entire game. For the most part, they stayed ducked to avoid being shot in the head. They'd sweep your location when you cloak and try to flush you out with grenades when you're cloaked. They may be less intelligent on lower difficulties though, so that's just something to look out for. And I am pleased to announce that there are no Space Harrier minigames to put up with this time, which was a pleasant surprise given how many action games seem to think them necessary. In fact, there are almost no annoying features. There's only 2 quick-time events in the entire game, and they're only for boss fight mechanics. So what did they add instead? A rail shooter section, ironically, which is actually quite fun. You're in a VTOL warship manning the gun turret as you try to rush to an objective, and you get a decent feel for the urgency, as well as a nice break from being a stealthy predator. So the game is definitely a winner, if only for this feature. Be advised, story spoilers inbound. So the story starts off with Prophet being revived conveniently after forgetting all that Alcatraz business. Presumably, Prophet assimilated Alcatraz into what remains of himself somewhere off-screen, like the Borg convenience. And now he has visions of a destroyed Earth, provided to him by the controlling influence of the Ceph hive mind, the Alpha Ceph. Meanwhile, the evil corporation Cell has taken over the entire planet by finding a way to harness Ceph energy to produce infinite free energy. And once everyone signs up to this and other power companies give up because they can't compete, the bills for this free energy rack up, and Cell controls the human population by making them work off their debt via a slavery system. Yet again, I'm reviewing a game with a debt-related control scheme. Welcome to the 21st century, humanity. But it turns out the infinite power supply is the life force of the Alpha Ceph, who they've been draining for years, and it's still alive. Somehow. Predictable, yes, but no, it's just predictable. Prophet shuts down the power plants, which, if all the other energy companies have really shut down, means Earth has no power, so why are the lights still on? And this, of course, awakens the millions of Ceph on Earth, who to this date has never been noticed, conveniently. But when they encounter resistance, they build an Einstein-Rosen bridge, otherwise known as a wormhole, to their home galaxy to bring in bigger and better Ceph reinforcements. But Prophet uses his mind control powers, which he developed because the suit is hybridizing Prophet into some kind of part human, part Ceph, part machine. Therefore, Prophet can access the hive mind and control it, apparently. So he shuts down the wormhole, kills the Alpha Ceph, and blows up a giant Ceph warship with a big, badass satellite weapons platform. I honestly don't know where to go from there. That is so cool. But throughout the game, there's another kind of subplot where Psycho wants to discover who literally dissected him out of his nanosuits. And when he finds out who it was, although it's fairly predictable, it was done really well. The aftermath, however, not so much. But it's a short subplot and not really important to the main story. The controls of Crysis 3 are very good. They're very responsive and completely rebindable. I only really need to rebind the melee button because you only have 2 suit powers now. Armor and cloak. Maximum strength is gone, as is maximum speed. But as a kind of compensating factor, I guess you're already pretty fast and strong enough to flip cars into cover. On the whole, the controls do work really well, and I admit I didn't try it with the 360 pad, and the 360 pad is supported, but I don't play PC FPS with a pad, and I don't know that many people who do. Crysis 3 is not as much of a PC smasher as Crysis 1, but it's not as console happy as Crysis 2. I ran it on my massive rig with everything set to very high, but I only got around about 25 frames per second, so I had to play it on high to get a smoother rate. As for my mid-range laptop, everything had to be on low, but let's be fair, this is a CryEngine game. What it calls low, most modern games would consider medium at the very least. So unless you have a very old or low-end system, I'd be confident in your ability to run this game. If you do have a lower system, perhaps get the console version. The replay value of Crysis 3 comes in several forms. First of all, there are many different difficulty levels, all the way up to an almost impossible difficulty. And repeated playthroughs are necessary to unlock all the different suit upgrades. Maybe you play through one of them with all the stealth enhancements first as kind of a silent predator type, and then again with all the firefight upgrades as an armoured killing machine. The other form of replay value it takes is the multiplayer, which includes Hunter Mode, a great new twist on FPS multiplayer. However, in my experience, matchmaking takes a very long time, and this might be a letdown to some people who are just after a quick, shooty fix. So, in conclusion, Crysis 3 is a very pretty game with some fun gameplay mechanics, great music and voice acting, and genuine reasons to replay the game. Yes, it has a predictable story, but it's paced fairly well over the 10-hour playtime. So, in my opinion, it's a definite must-have. I give Crysis 3 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching my review of Crysis 3. Remember to like and favourite this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next week, I've been Salis, this has been Crysis 3, and I will see you next time.